My name is David Walsh. I once answered to the term Sergeant Walsh. Hey, you, come here. So that was in a past life many, many years ago. But today I'm called Papa by my grandchildren, and that's the best title ever given to any man. But you folks can just call me Dave. I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in 1966, a long time ago, and served there until 1970. I was trained to be a radar man, which meant that I repaired and tuned airborne radar systems, and I became very good at it. I could swap out a magnetron or a reflex klystron and tune it all up and make it all work in short time. I spent 2 tours of duty in Vietnam after the Tet Offensive in 1968. First into a little town called Nha Trang. They had a small naval air base there. And then at Cam Ranh Bay, which was the luxury place to be assigned at the time. Our Navy man here in the crowd might know and remember Cam Ranh Bay. It was there that I spent a lot of time water skiing on the South China Sea. Behind boats that were pulled by the Navy guys. And thank you very much, Navy sailors, for doing that for us. In the Air Force, we get treated very well. So the Marines, however, had a rough tour of duty. Navy too, Army, of course, all had tough times. Air Force, we were treated like kings over there. And so I was very grateful to have served in that Air Force unit. So that history, my friends, just makes me a veteran. That's so I'm qualified to have been on the selected list to apply to Honor Flight, which is a group of people. I'll tell you more about them shortly. The veteran term is a title that I wear proudly as an American. By the way, I'll honorably use this word despite the recent Stanford University's latest opinions. It's an aside. I'm honored to be counted among the many men who served, and I am extremely grateful that I made it back home. Some didn't. Many didn't. I don't hold any doctoral degrees. I'm just a guy who lives down the street. I am surely not a seasoned public speaker. What you see is what you get. Yes, today I am your neighbor and a member here at the Senior Center. My wife and I, now both retired, pursue our happiness living here in Walpole. It has become clear to me that Walpole truly takes care of its veterans. Our Veterans Service Committee is actively bringing awareness of and honor to all of the veterans in our community. It was 3 years ago that Veteran Service member Donna Summers introduced Honor Flight to all veterans who attended one of our monthly meetings. I don't see Donna in the audience today, but I hope she shows up. She's a Hard Knocks veteran herself. And it was with her encouragement that I applied to Honor Flight, thinking that it just might be a good thing. Who would not want a free airplane ride down to Washington, D.C. just to see the war memorials? I never win raffles or contests of any kind, so any hope of ever being selected to go on this flew out the window. But the pandemic came and the program was shelved. But later this year, I was notified that I had been chosen to join a group scheduled for September, just this past September. It proved to be a most exciting and rewarding and memorable experience, helping to close the chapters that have been left open in my life. As noted here, I have dedicated I want to advance the screen if I can. Need some technical help. Space bar. Not the enter key. Jerk. The opening screen here tells that Donna Summers was crucial at getting me into the honor flight. And she's, although not here, she is just a wonderful gal. If you get to know her, give her a big hug for me when you see her next time. I must preface my remarks here by adding this disclosure. The following words in this presentation are words of my own, and they may not directly agree with those of the directive of COA. They are all my words. If Kerry is in the room, or Shirley Lindsay might be squirming in her seat right now, wondering what the heck I'm going to say, but I think we're going to be good with it. So please know that many veterans are reluctant to discuss their time in service. I see that our dear friend Donna has just arrived in the room, and without any further delay, let's give Donna a big applause for the fact that she drives Walpole's Veterans Service Committee. Donna Summers, ladies and gentlemen. Hi. Wonderful gal. Many veterans are reluctant to tell their stories. They tell it only to the ones that truly understand, those that had already experienced it in the past. Sometimes those stories come out short, some of them are hard, they're difficult to mention, but always worthwhile listening to. Our former Director of Veteran Services, together with our energetic COAA Director, Kerry McManama, have been an enormous help to me in the preparation of this slide preparation. I'm privileged to be invited here today by Kerry to share my honor flight stories and the photos of my trip to Washington, thus proving that Walpole surely indeed takes care of its veterans. I hope you're all comfortable with a friendly cup of coffee. And remember that this time is for conversation only. Also, if you have a question or comments, there's a microphone in the center of the room. Thanks to Patrick, who set that up. Just shout it out into that mic, and we'll do our best to answer your question or provide you with the information that you need. Spacebar. We are collecting our vets. On the day of September 25th, early in the morning, we were told we had to gather at 0700 hours, the military term for very early in the morning, which meant that you had to get out of bed. And what I remember, they called it dark 30, meaning very early. Veterans were arriving at Troop F, the building at the Logan Airport, the state police building, right next to not far from the runways at Logan. And we were told to meet there, which is great because they had all the parking space in the world for big buses and lots of people. Coffee and donuts were served, and this was the first glimpse of other vets who came from all over. You can see that some of them were in wheelchairs, and all of them had smiles on their faces, especially with a free cup of coffee in their hand and donuts. So it was a great time. And that was the first time they introduced us to a surprise gift package that included this veteran's cap and a very nice jacket, all embroidered with honor flight veterans. And also they gave us this t-shirt in which to wear. So even if you had an outer garment of a jacket, you were told to put this over that. The reason was to make sure they knew where all of us vets were. We felt like kindergartners, all heading out for a day trip, but it was okay. We became a team. All of these folks from New England wearing t-shirts like this, and that made us all have a sense of belonging. to a group, and so that was good. This was also the first time we got to meet our guardians. What a guardian is a volunteer who is matched up with a single other veteran. Incidentally, the guardians don't have to be veterans themselves, just a citizen that might want to share his time in support of the efforts of Honor Flight. So it was a good experience for them. I got to meet at this time when we were gathered together with my guardian, Mark Varney, who is an ex-Army dude, just a huge man himself, but he wound up being a lifelong friend by the end of the day. Incidentally, that's the whole purpose of this trip, was to just spend the day, not overnight, just the day, down there and back, but it was a very worthwhile experience. So we loaded up into a bus, and crazy enough, we were given an honor guard, an escort by a state police, complete with flashing lights, as you can see, just barely. There's a flashing blue light there. We went through red lights. We went through everything, just like a funeral of a president, maybe. Crazy ride from one area of the airport up to the southwest gate. It was quite a trip. I need to tell you a little bit more about what Honor Flight is all about. The New England chapter is based out of Hooksett, New Hampshire. We know of other chapters in Maine and another one in Texas. Their message to try to get out to all these veterans is, the first is, time is running out to thank our veterans. And this is true. I discussed this with our Navy veteran here in the room today. They're dropping like flies. They're all about 90 years old or plus, maybe coming up onto the 100-year mark. So it's very important to collect these World War II veterans particularly. So time is running out, and running out just to say thanks. We need to say thanks to our veterans. The other requirement that Honor Flight asks is that we only wear a smile on this trip, which is true. They don't charge us anything. There's no fees, in no way do they ask anything in return. They just want you to have a good time. They allow you the time to contemplate and think of how grateful we are or should be, I should say, in living this life and being able to live here in this country with the freedoms that we have and the liberties that we so well have earned. It's Honor Flight's way of saying thanks. And they fly veterans to D.C. to visit our war memorials, just with an opportunity to heal old wounds. When we got to the gate at the Southwest Airlines outbound area, I was just blown away. Now we're at 0800 hours. I was very surprised to see this many people had all turned out, which meant they had to get up at dark 30, as well as I did, to get dressed, drive into the airport, just to wish a bunch of old veterans happiness on their way to this trip. As you can see, I'm walking down through this aisle, and there's a woman over to the right there who's clapping, and this farmer-looking dude, he must have fed the chickens, come here to help us say goodbye. There's a bunch of football players over on the left-hand side, and a row of flags. So my comment there, I don't know if you can read it, says, Who's paying for all this? That was the thought that came through my mind as when I first looked at this slide. Who the heck is paying for all this? Friends, it's not our U.S. government that spent one penny on this. It all comes from corporations who feel the need to send a thank you out, and from private citizens, U.S. American citizens. I'm going to use that word American, and it'll put a tear in your heart to know that there's still people who care. So here's another area. There's football players there. There's a row of American flags. By the way, the word proof is across there because these are photos that I stole from the Honor Flight New England library of that same day. I thanked them for them. They didn't charge me for them, so I'm assuming I can use them. Maybe not. Don't know. But there they are. There's the polished floor with a row of American flags and all of the people who showed up clapping and applauding as we, old men veterans walking down this center strip here. There's those football players again here. And, the young fella there holding that red sign, he stepped forward right after I took his picture. Young guy, he was probably the quarterback for that team. Stuck out his hand and said, "Thanks, bro." It was great. It was absolutely great. All these people, unbelievable. It's just mind-boggling what can go on here. Yeah, so I don't know if we can get back to that one. How about that one? Yeah, here's a shot where my guardian, this big guy here over to the right, that's Mark, my guardian, and he's not only has quite a history with his with the Honor Flight New England group, but he's a biker, and all of his biker friends showed up, and so Mark's giving and getting a big hug from one of his buddies, and he introduced me to him. There's me with my Winthrop, Maine American Legion cap, and we're all ready to have a good time. Then just as on the far right is the gate. Once you're beyond that gate, you're heading down that ramp to the airport, onto the airline. But you can see this honor guard. This means that these folks got fully dressed into their dress blues, we used to call them, and standing there at a salute for these old dudes walking before them. It was quite an honor. All dressed up for us. Unbelievable. If you folks have any questions at any time, there's a microphone there. I'm reminding you to just yell out. So there's Mark, my guardian. I got the window seat, and Mark took this picture. And so I was all settled in, ready for the trip down to Washington, D.C. It was 0900 by that time. On the way out to the runway, our airplane took slow forward speed as we were just saluted with a water cannon. You can see the Logan Airport water fire truck got out there, and as we're rounding the corner to approach the runway, the water cannon let loose. Yes, Sue.
How many men are with you?
Oh, good question. Yeah. Did you all hear that question? Yep. There were 33 of us veterans. which meant that there was a total of 66 total, because every veteran had a guardian assigned to them. So we were given caretakers essentially for the whole day. If I fell on the ground, Mark was there to pick me up. If I needed a quarter for bubble gum, he was there to drop it in the machine. Anything I wanted, I was not allowed to do it myself. Mark was going to do it for me. So the guardians that partake in this program are very dedicated volunteers, believe me. So we were off to a wonderful start. We had these water cannons. I think there's another view of it here. Yeah, it was quite a send-off. So as we rounded the corner, we got drenched. Right all over the our 737 as we were cruising around, rolling on the tarmac there at Logan Airport. Weather was perfect, and we had a great flight down to Washington. All veterans and guardians arrived safely because it says here the captain had remembered very nicely to put the flaps down on takeoff and landing. And being in the Air Force, I know how crucial that is to do. If you ever watched the Air Disaster show on, I think it's History Channel, you might know that you got to put the flaps down when the flaps are right for it. So this was our captain. He stood and posed for every veteran and guardian as they walked down that ramp onto the airplane. I think this picture was actually taken when we landed, and now where he got up from his seat and posed for all, and every veteran got his picture taken with the captain. And so we got walking through the gate. Another one of Honor Flight's pictures shows me complete with cane and Mark following me, making sure I don't fall over, I suppose. And there's my guy Mark. He can be my guardian anytime. Yep, here it says. It says so right there. Look at the size of this man. He was a Army tank commander. He knows everything about all kinds of tanks, stuff that I know nothing about, but that's okay. He doesn't know anything about magnetrons or reflex klystrons. So I'm guessing we had a great day nonetheless, and we shared stories and events, and he took good care of me, I must say that. Our first stop, the Washington Monument, after we had a short ride from the Baltimore Washington, BMW Washington Airport. We stopped here.
How'd you get all the people to clear out from around you? Every picture I see you in, there's nobody around. What'd you do, Dave?
Well, we must say he hit it lucky. I think the next slide, Donna, you'll see there's more pictures because right at the Washington Monument is the World War II Memorial. And you can see that maybe there's the people you're looking for. There are signs all over that says no bathing in the pool here at the memorial.
We thought maybe that was your problem.
People don't care.
Taken away from you.
So there at the monument, there's people with their toes in the water having a grand old time. I spent a lot of time in the state of Maine. It's my home away from home. And each one of those pillars around the World War II Memorial represents a state. And engraved in that granite is the state's name. So I found Maine, and I had Mark take a picture of me in front of that one. Incidentally, my connection to Winthrop, Maine was seen by one of our drivers here at the COA Center, Jim Hines. His family was born and raised in Winthrop, Maine. And he viewed this slide presentation when I first showed it, and he looked at me oddly and he said, "What do you know about Winthrop, Maine?" "Well, that's where I spend all my spare time." "Really?" He said, "That's where I'm from. That's where I was born." So there are some other connections to Winthrop. Small world story, but a very good one. Mark hails from New Hampshire. So we stopped there, and we also took his shot right there. We had a great time. Nice guy. Next, we ventured over to the Lincoln Memorial and the reflecting pool that's Abraham is sitting in a granite chair way down at the end of that reflecting pool. He can overlook this. This is another, brings back memories of the Forrest Gump movie when Jenny was crossing that. You probably all remember that. So here's your people, lots of people around here. And there's, if you look carefully, I think you can see Jenny coming from the left-hand side of that picture over to see Forrest. Forrest! We had time to for lunch, just barely. We wolfed down an Arby's roast beef sandwich. It's noon by that time, and I don't know, Mark caught a picture of me munching my sandwich, so wound up here. And there's my guy doing his job. The best thing that he does is do his guardianship work. Those are the buses we had. These are no little rinky-dink school buses. These were luxury buses, wheelchair capable. They lift all of our wheelchaired veterans up onto it, and they were very well equipped to do the work that they needed to do. Mark, as you can see, is standing under a sign that says "Honor Flight Veterans," the marquee there on the bus. Outstandingly well done. All the details were all in place. Next stop was on the way to the Korean War Veteran is this array of granite stones. And in the far back, I don't know if you can just see it, is the very popular piece of graffiti that our Korean War veterans would plaster all over the Korean countryside back in those days. And it was a snout-like look. There was a line drawn with a head and with eyes and a snout, and it said Kilroy was here. And it was a little sign to other Americans that an American stood right here at one time. So somebody had actually put that piece of graffiti on that pathway, and so I thought it was interesting. I took a picture of it. Yes, Kilroy was here. And so we arrived at the Korean War Memorial here, which is an array of statues, very beautifully done, each one carrying a weapon, and I'm told each weapon is slightly different one from the other. And you can see some of our veterans. There's one far on the right who is with my flight, and some of the others on the left-hand side walking up against the wall. That Korean War wall, by the way, has a whole array of like sand-blasted pictures of Korean War veterans etched into the stone. It's absolutely wonderful. And there's another view of that head of the leader of the group of statues there. Right in front of that lead statue is a piece of granite that's in the ground. And it's etched with these words. I'll read it to you if you can't from your seats. It says, "Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country that they never knew and a people they never met." Yes, America does this very well, and we still do that to this day. I won't say any more. We went onward now to the Vietnam Memorial Wall. Did you know that there are 58,267, imagine that number, Those are the number of names on this wall of men who gave it all. I don't know if gave it all is the right word, but their names are there. Their rank and serial number is not, just their names. Very interesting. So that sort of makes every man equal to the guy that's listed next to him. They didn't put all the generals in one column and all the privates in another, the airmen, the seamen on different walls. No, they're all listed in the order in which they died. All more than 58,000 of them. A few little facts about this wall and the Vietnam War were provided me by the Walpole Veterans Society committee members. The first casualty, the first name on this wall is a Lieutenant Richard B. Fitzgibbons of North Weymouth, Massachusetts, who died in 1956. And strangely, oddly, curiously enough, there's another listed in 1965 that Lieutenant Fitzgibbons' grandson, Richard B. Fitzgibbon III, his name is also on this wall. Unbelievable. So over multiple generations, men have died in this war, and they wound up with their names on the wall.
I don't think, Dave, I don't believe people even realize how long that war went on.
Oh yes, for sure.
A lot of people I have met or talked to who aren't military said to me, well, you were Vietnam era, and I was in 71. They go, wasn't that late? I said, no, the war went on until 76. I said, what people don't realize is they associate the Vietnam War with the hippies, with the people in the 1960s, late 50s and 60s who protested.
You're absolutely right, Donna.
Before then and long after that.
Yep. And
if it was just that one generation that said enough is enough.
yep. Moreover, there was a lot of activity before I was able to think about it. It goes back to 1956 and earlier than that, when we were engaged in consultants over there, and those consultants lost their lives in the efforts spent in that foolish war.
There was a senior I went to high school with who's on that wall. So it just went on and on, so it doesn't surprise me that there are
Yeah, that's true. Included in the names on this wall are 4 sons of Walpole, who all died in 1968, right after the Tet Offensive. And I'm going to name those names. The first one was Richard Drake, Nicholas Conaxis, Paul Fitzgibbons, and Brian Collins. Those are the 4 names of Walpole veterans that I was able to confirm. There's some rumors that there are others out there, but I haven't been able to confirm.
supposedly there's 7, but I have yet to be able to confirm that.
Thank you, Donna. Right. It's important that we note that there might be others, but these 4 are surely ones who need to be remembered.
It was on Indigo Town Hall, and nobody seems to know where those went. I checked with the historical society, and well, there was actually, it wasn't a paper list. It was a list placard.
Yep.
Also with that was a list of all the women told me about that.
Right.
I've been unable to locate that too. Yes. Lawrence told me to seek out last time she heard, they were in the basement. The firemen, the fire department was in charge of the basement. Who gets anyone back that far? Knows they're there somewhere.
Yeah, we need to dust it off and get whatever information we can and bring it to light. Right,
Yeah.
that's important to do. Maybe you can pursue that for us, Donna, and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Mr. Steve Kenny, which I think Donna knows, who also serves on the Veterans Services Committee. Who is? Is he here today?
No, Steve is in. I told you.
Oh, that's right.
He's
He's down in Florida somewhere.
Yeah, Gisette is with the auxiliary up at the VFW.
Okay. Well, it was Mr. Steve Kenny who was one time asked to provide some information to the Walpole Times about these honored veterans, and he has done so. And Mr. John Anderson of the Historical Society was able to provide me with the data and a reproduction of the newspaper article, which is over there on the table. You can see the pictures of those 4 servicemen who died.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson is the one who's interested in that list too.
I'm sure he is.
He's going to be looking into it, and then COVID hit. Everything.
That's right. And John he was also a COVID victim, so he's had to delay his response to me, and I was hoping to meet with him today, but I hope he's doing well. Yeah.
But they know that I'm still in Florida. Yeah, so.
All right, folks, moving on from the Vietnam Memorial, here's some more facts. 3 sets of fathers and sons, imagine that. Almost 40,000 names on this wall were just 22 years or older. Over 8,000 of them were 19 years old, but the biggest group of names etched into this wall, 33,000 names. These guys were young. They were only 18 years old. Not known by many, there's 12 soldiers on this wall who are only 17. And there's a couple of young, really young guys who forged their certificates of enlistment, and it was later found out that they were only 16 years old. Boys, really. Kids. Almost 1,000 of these soldiers were deployed into battle and were killed on their first day. Yes, sir, you have a question?
My cousin was one of them. 2 days before Thanksgiving.
My God, there is a place in heaven for him for sure. Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss. Any other questions? There were brothers, 31 sets of brothers on this wall. I thought there had been a law passed after some movie I saw one time about multiple brothers going off to war, and I thought they changed the rules about that, but 31 sets of brothers are on this wall, and 8 nurses, females, nurses, had given up their lives for the efforts of this war. And you may not know it, but there is a nurses memorial right there next to the Korean War Memorial. I have a daughter who's a nurse, and I reviewed this presentation with her. And she thought that this was quite a stunning and meaningful set of statues here. You can see in the center there are 2 nurses, one standing up, one kneeling down with a wounded soldier that she's tending to. And my daughter developed a little tear in her eye, honest to goodness, when she saw this. They gave it all to. There's a term, all gave some, but some gave it all. And there's a lot of truth to that little saying. We moved on to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And you can see that it was raining that day. You can also see that I'm right up next to the chain link piece that keeps us away from getting too close to this guard. And the reason for that is that when we stepped off the bus, Mark gave me an order, not a suggestion, an order. Get into this wheelchair. And I said, Mark, I don't need a wheelchair. I'm doing just fine. Get in the wheelchair. I got in the wheelchair. I'll tell you why later, he said. Well, it turns out that as he pushed me up to the place where the tomb is displayed, the wheelchair people get front row seats. And if you're standing and able-bodied, you get way in the back. So I got a front row seat, and I was able to take this shot for you folks to understand that it's a very, very somber place. Not a word was spoken. It was silent. You could go there in the middle of a crowded day, and you won't hear a word said. It's this guy with the rifle on his shoulder takes 21 steps from one side of that mat to the other step, to the other end of that mat. So he's got a couple more steps to go before he stops. And he stops, turns around, and stands for 21 seconds. Then he moves on down that black rubber mat, 21 steps, does the same thing at the other end. By the way, he holds that rifle in his shoulder. He changes from one side to the other, and there's some significance to that. But he does this for 21 minutes before there's another changing of the guards. And so this guy gets replaced by a very somber ceremony where they click their heels and they do it upright. And this guy, who's apparently very tired after multiple times going up and down this rubber mat, he's replaced by another guy who does it all over again. I'm told they don't do it through the night. They do it from reveille in the morning until taps at night. They do this. I don't know if, I suppose they do it on holidays. I'll have to get the details of that, but it's quite an undertaking. Yeah, it was a wet, somber, and silent afternoon. You might notice this guy over on the rail beyond there. He was one of our veterans. He's not an old veteran. He's an Iraqi war veteran, and he has a service dog with him. And the reason for the dog is that this young man has service-related multiple diseases and illnesses have come down on this guy, and he was given high priority to come with us aboard on this flight. And his guardian standing next to him is his wife. And a wonderful, lovely couple. And I'm hoping that he still enjoys some health today, but I've lost track of him now. I should look in and see how he's doing. After we visited that area, we went to gather back onto the buses, and I caught the shot of the people, the two main people who made it all happen. These are the founders of Honor Flight New England. On the right there is Joe Byron, who just works tirelessly both of these people are fully employed, and they are volunteers. They don't take a penny from any of the donations, which reminds me, I should tell you that if you ever are inclined to want to donate to a charity, you might want to look up what the founders take or receive from the funds that they collect. If it's under 20%, after I research them, you don't get a dime from me. Some of these CEOs of charities who run around in Rolls Royces and pay themselves $2 million, believe me, they're not going to get my donation. But Honor Flight New England, every 93 cents of every dollar goes right to the veteran. And this is true of Tunnels of Towers and the other veterans, Wounded War Veterans Program, they are also worthy of your donation. Some are not. I suggest you donate wisely.
We're donating.
They're a very good organization, and you're to be commended for helping to support them. They do a wonderful job, as well does the Wounded Warrior Program. Highly recommend. And you can also donate to Honor Flight. And their information is, contact information available over there at the table. So then we boarded airplanes and headed on to the Air Force Memorial, which is high on a plateau in the Arlington National Cemetery area. It commands a beautiful, beautiful sight. And you can see it's not a building. It's 3 spires that go up into the sky. And it's getting late in the afternoon, 1700 hours, for those of you who don't know, 5 o'clock. And it was after now that rainstorm that we had at the Tomb of the Unknown. So gray skies, we're getting tired by this time, but we wanted to take this one in. Those spires, incidentally, I'll tell you in a minute, are each significant. There is a stone there at the Air Force Memorial, and it's recorded here. It was dedicated in 2004. This stone is right outside the men's room at the area there. So you have to look hard for it. So these spires represent integrity, service, and excellence. Mark was getting ready to take his own picture of that. There's also a polished granite stone at the Air Force Memorial there. I was delighted to be there because I was Air Force. On the top of the list there, if you look at it real hard, there's Doolittle's name appears. These are men who won the Medal of Honor, all to be honored with their names up on their wall. They outperformed the best of the best, as I say here. So I got to have my picture taken in front of that stone. It was a rainy day. Very few visitors ever go over to the business district in Washington, D.C., but there it is on the horizon. I think if you see broadcasts located in Washington, D.C., that's where they're coming from. I don't know of anybody who goes there to visit the business district, but you can see it from the top of the hill there. More of the same. You can see the puddles in the ground. It was silent, wet, soggy afternoon, but we had a good time. One of our guardians was this young gal. Her name was Kim, and she was just had the bubbliest personality. Just a wonderful gal that the best you'd ever want to meet. And I use the word effervescent to describe her, and she loved that word. So I put it here on this slide to show you, and you can see just from the way she's smiling and waving there that she was full of effervescence. The Pentagon can also be seen from the top of that hill. A very poor picture, but I tried to frame it so that you make it a little more interesting. You might notice if you look carefully right there in the center of the building, the brickwork is a slightly different and lighter color. Anybody know why? Who said that? Yes. Right. There was an airplane on 9/11 went into that building, and the front of that building was destroyed. And so they rebuilt that, and it shows. The brickwork is lighter in color, and it's kind of shows a Band-Aid that's on there. It was a cloudy day, so I won't apologize for the picture. I tried to frame the Washington Monument through the middle of these two trees, and I think if you look hard, you can see that is there on the horizon. So now they gathered us all together there at the top of the hill to take our picture, and I think if you count heads, we'll come up to the 33 that Sue was looking for. There we are, all of these collective veterans, and yes, everybody felt that their brother was standing by their side. I told you a story about the young fellow with his service dog. Service dog's name was Tank. Very appropriate. So these are the faces of some of the men who served and gave the best years of their lives, so that you may live in freedom and with liberty in the best country that God ever put on this earth. We had 2 World War II vets, and I think they're located way over to in wheelchairs, way over to the far right. They had some interesting stories to tell, and both of those gentlemen were very frail. There's priorities given to World War II vets, Korean War vets, and terminally ill vets, as I may have mentioned before. And so we were lucky to have that young gentleman with Tank there, and soon veterans from the Gulf War, Iraqi War, Afghanistan War will also be eligible, and I think that's going to happen very soon, next month or later. Incidentally, they try to do this every month, but they may not always have enough participants. They wait until there's enough to fill an airplane. And so it's important to collect the veterans that we can today. So that same photo session, there's proof I was actually there. I'm right smack dab in the middle. The guy standing to my right was Paul. He was an Army veteran who had boots on the ground the same time I was, but he was an infantryman. He had stories to tell. He has 3 Purple Hearts, and he walks around with shrapnel in his body today. He had wonderful stories to tell, and is just an outstanding human being. All of the men you see there might be attached to faces of your neighbor right down the street. Don't they all look like somebody you know? Bunch of nice guys. At the end of that picture taking time, the veterans got to take a picture of the Guardians. So they were breaking up from taking pictures of us, so we took a picture of them. Commander Joe was leading the crew, and there's an equal number of the Guardians all getting ready. We're starting to get into party mode by this time. So we had a short ride to a Hilton hotel, and they had a room all set up for us for a beautiful ballroom dinner, which was waiting us. It was just absolutely great, nice meal. We had all seated at different tables. This is the gentleman who we shared time with, and with his guardian. And here's a little shot showing after dinner, just the dessert is left, which I think was an apple pie. It was very good. So dinner time was done, and we all sat around those tables with time to chat. My folded napkin is in front of me next to Mark's right there, and I'm up taking a picture. So here you can see this elegant ballroom area, and all full of veterans. We had time to chat for sure, and when we chatted about our most memorable times and things that were important to us, we ate all our desserts, and until there was just nothing but clean plates. So we headed aboard the buses once again, but before we did, they gave us each a certificate, which I think there's a slide coming up soon that will show that. You can see that the wheelchair veterans were up in front. They arranged us in a semicircle with the other veterans standing behind them. And we were getting ready for some sort of show. We had no idea what was about to happen. But as the boombox was playing YMCA, people were, travelers were going through the terminal, and they wonder, what's all this commotion about? So here's a gal she's, I don't know, she's looking to spend some holiday time somewhere. She's wondering what's going on. She took the time to come over and went right down the row of wheelchaired veterans, shook their hands. Some of them got a kiss, and she made light of everything, and she was just a wonderful addition to our day.
Hey, you know what I wanted to ask
Yes, Donna.
about? Did you see other states there?
Yes, while we were traveling through the area of the memorials, we ran into others with similar T-shirts on. One group was from Texas, Honor Flight, Texas.
I brought back,
Yes.
I was unaware of that until I brought that book back.
Yep.
I got a book, that's when I first learned about it. About 8 years ago, my son settled in Texas. And he had to go to the USO down in San Antonio. I was visiting, I went with him. And while he was in the closed room with whoever he had to do business with, I went out in the waiting room, beautiful. Oh, the USO down there is gorgeous. It's huge, it's right by the Riverwalk. If you ever get to Texas, go to the USO. But there was this huge book there, Honor Flight. And I was enthralled with it, and that's when I first learned about the Honor Flight and brought it back. Oh, I didn't know that they were different. Every
Right.
state runs their own.
I'll make it my job to look in to see exactly how many chapters there are in national Honor Flight is a national group, and I know that there are chapters. This one that I was part of was Honor Flight New England. I know of Texas and I know of Maine. My friend in Maine has now sent in his application for Honor Flight Maine. So I'm interested to learn if there are others out in the West Coast, for example. Yeah. So the Guardians have all arranged themselves right now, and the boombox that you see in the floor is blaring out that YMCA song. YMCA, everybody now. Yeah. And so they're clapping and they're doing the YMCA thing, and veterans are saying, well, they must have rehearsed this because they did a bang-up job for sure. So here they are, they dance to the YMCA. A great tribute. They were all having a fun time. It was about this time that Joe, the founder of Honor Flight New England, handed out this envelopes. In each envelope was a certificate suitable for framing that proves that we were part of our day together all the way down in D.C. So signed by Joseph, and I'm going to frame mine and put it in my man cave. They also had this devious method of colluding with my wife and all the wives who, collusion is a big word nowadays, but my wife was contacted by them, and the chore was, see if you can find a picture of Dave back in the day. So she supplied an old uniform, and yeah, it just only shows that yes, I was young once. Every veteran was given a picture of himself in uniform, some in fatigues, some in dress blues, but they all got a picture of themselves somehow. So that was a big treat too. So as we were just about to board the bus to get back to the airport, Joe called mail call. Well, every veteran knows what mail call means. It means that you're about to receive, if you're lucky, some word from home, some message. So every veteran got now a large manila envelope as we stepped onto the bus to get back to the airport. And we looked inside, and there's messages of thank yous, notes, and letters. And so on the trip back to the airport, which if you've ever been down to that area, you know that there's the perimeter highway which travels like Route 128, bumper to bumper. So there was plenty of time to get from that Hilton Hotel into the airport. And I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye on that bus from any veteran. We were opening up these cards of thanks. And here's just a few of them to let you know what I meant. Some of them came from children. Here's Mrs. Walter's 4th grade class from Merrimack, New Hampshire. And she writes a very nice note, and all of the students, her 4th grade students, wrote their name on it. Duh. Be still my heart, right? Some from older citizens. Here's a Dear Veteran, written by a very elegant, with his penmanship. Don't know where he's from, but doesn't matter. It's a thank you. Everybody got a bag full of thanks. Here's a company in Devons. Must be around Fort Devens, I imagine. Yep. SMC Limited.
There is an organization up there.
Yes.
And they still do veteran stuff up there.
Isn't that great? Well, here's a bunch of grown adults who all got together and signed this just to say thanks. Some from far away. Now here, the top note there is from Arizona, Gilbert, Arizona. And she says, whatever branch of service, thank you for your service to our country. That means everything to any veteran, anytime. From Earlene, from Arizona. The bottom note comes from Michigan. Another big thank you. Some from children. This one, my granddaughter Samantha took out her colored pencils and through some collusion got wound up in my manila envelope. And there those are the bombs bursting in air, as I'm told, with the American flag. Yep. And each and every one of these notes is fully equipped to put a tear in any vet's eye, I guarantee. Absolutely.
Because I have met so many teenagers that don't really know what a veteran is.
Don't know what a veteran is? Wow.
They're like, well, isn't that someone who was military? But they're not familiar with if they've had nobody in their family.
Well, that's astonishing. That is absolutely astonishing that we don't teach our children the historical facts and honor the veterans, even use the word veteran and teach them what it means. Surely it put a veteran's history and just a thank you can put a tear into his eye. Some letters had many words. Signed by a grateful American, it says here, all with very kind words, or a handwritten note from Mr. David Lindsay, DAR, American Revolution, is that right? DAR chapter. So, how can we ever thank you enough, he says. Kids got involved, as you saw. My very own grandchildren got to got their colored pencils out. So some little kid colored this eagle. And my wife wrote a thank you note. It's signed Raquel, but I need to explain that's my own fantasy name for her. There was this movie star named Raquel who was important to my life at one time in my life. But anyway, my sweet Ava wrote a very heartfelt note of thanks to me here. She was a teacher. My dear wife was a school teacher for the middle schools in the foreign language department. And I must tell you that there's a little shout out about teachers. If you can read the back of this T-shirt that I wore that day. Okay, for those of you who can't read it, it says, if you can read this, thank a teacher. If you can read this in English, thank a veteran. So that's significant. I have a friend up in Maine named Darrell, and he too lost eyesight in one eye, and still today he walks around with a chunk of shrapnel in his right eye. And he was nice enough to send me this word of congratulations for getting on this flight, and the fact that he's happy to be my friend, and I certainly am happy to be his. Even my wife dug up old girlfriends, high school girlfriends, can you imagine? And got them to say a word about me. You don't have to read it, folks. It's all mush. And also more mush from my grown children. My children are all grown up with children of their own. But the bottom line, we are so proud and glad you were able to have this experience. We can't wait to hear all about it. They've already heard way too much, and they're probably tired of hearing about it now. But I received love from my oldest son, Andy, second son, Alan, my daughter, Giancarla, and Amy. They're wonderful people with kids of their own that are all A students, scholars, and athletes, all bringing home big grades of A. And I'm just so blessed to have these grandchildren. And altogether, these notes are there to say thank you for your service. It means everything to me. And this trip has healed the hidden wound that was left in my heart by a country that only wanted to forget. I was hoping that our dear friend Stacy Murphy would be here today. She's contracted COVID this morning, and she's unable to present her comments and pictures, but she had her husband leave off this morning that book. And Sue, maybe you could look at that and pass it around to people who might be interested in looking at that. Stacy
last night, she said she was coming.
I know, but she contacted or spent some time with her neighbor. This morning, she's got COVID. She was really under the weather when she called me this morning, so I'm hoping that she'll recover real quickly.
Rita, Veterans Chairman Committee, patient advocate, her
That's right.
and the patient advocate, the one who works in West Roxbury, both have it. So now there's no patient advocate in West Roxbury for a little.
Oh. Well, sadly, she wasn't able to be with us today, but you might be interested to know that she served in 2018 as a guardian. And she went on a flight down to Washington, D.C. herself. I know her as the girl that serves pancakes at Veterans Pancake Breakfast. She's a wonderful gal, and she also runs the business of photography here in Walpole. And she is the driving force behind the banner program. If you see the banners down in...
Taking that over, which is wonderful.
Yep, she does a bang-up job of producing those banners that are down at our Walpole Center for all to see. So I'm sorry that Stacy's not able to be here with us today, but we send along wishes that she gets well real quick. I mentioned that I'm an American Legion member up in Winthrop, Maine, and so as required, since I got a free baseball cap with American Legion on it, I was sort of obliged to send a report off to our adjutant up there at the post, telling him of my wonderful trip. Volunteer. Oh, contact the Honor Flight New England or any chapter that you might want to. Tell them I'm interested, and I'm sure they'll sign you right up. No training required. You just have to have the right heart. I think so. Yeah, honorflightnewengland.org is the www place to be if you're interested in that. And I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear from you. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but
Oh,
according to Google, last year, 2021, there were 133
folks, there's our answer. Thank you so much for our techno whiz here, right in our audience. 145 chapters of the Honor Flight all across the country. 133? Okay.
5 states.
Oh, okay. Great. That's an outstanding number. All right. Thank you all for coming, and please have a very, very Merry Christmas.